Hello, and thanks for joining us today. At this time, I would like to welcome everyone to today's webinar, Pentaho Business Analytics at Shareable Ink. I'd like to now introduce today's presenter, Jerry Andrade. Jerry is the VP of Product Management at Shareable Ink. He has over 10 years of experience in health information technology and 5 years specializing in electronic medical records. Prior to joining Shareable Ink, Jerry served as the director at Qualifax, which grew to be the leading SaaS provider of EMR technology in behavioral health. Jerry led multiple departments during his tenure there, including product delivery, business analysis, and sales engineering. Before that, Jerry designed internal business intelligence components at HCA. Jerry has also served as the senior developer and led software architecture initiatives for Medco Health, Bank of America, and Deloitte Consulting. I now turn it over to Jerry to begin the presentation.
Hello everyone, this is Jerry. I'm very excited to be talking to you today and tell you a little bit about the company I'm currently with named Shareable Ink. And we'll also be talking further about how Pentaho has been able to assist us in our analytics efforts. So before we get started in talking about Pentaho and our relationship a little bit, I'd like to introduce you to our company, Shareable Ink, and tell you a little bit about what we do. As you can see on the slide here, our mission is really based around helping healthcare organizations become more electronic. Our leadership recognized early on that there's been a challenge for the healthcare industry to move towards creating electronic records and heavily been fixated on the paper documentation side of things. So our goal is to help the healthcare orgs become more electronic and in turn improve quality of care for patients. Now the way we're doing this is by using cloud computing technology to combined with intuitive input tools to help deliver an experience for the physicians, clinicians, and practitioners that we interact with that allows them to make EMR technology more accessible and more intuitive. These input tools include things like digital pen technology and iPad devices. Now the reason why this is important not only to Shareable Ink but to the industry as a whole is we're seeing increasing demand for data, and it's a data-driven industry, and the true component and value of electronic health record technology is unlocked when we can get the data in so that we can record information effectively and also produce effective reporting and analytics out so we can improve decision making through data. Now to give you a little bit more detail on why we're doing this and why we think the opportunity is there, include a slide just to talk about how demand has increased for electronic health records, but the solution necessarily hasn't been found. So you can see on this slide, 78% of physicians fear a significant productivity loss from EMRs. Because of the fact that many of these EMRs are web-based or they have a separate interface, the physician or the provider is often distracted and has to actually type in through a keyboard directly into the system. This can interrupt workflow and make it difficult for the provider to focus on the patient and provide care. As you can see on the right side, the U.S. EMR adoption model on the slide, you can see that only 2.5% of U.S. hospitals actually document with fingers on keyboards. Even though EMR and EHR technology has been around for decades now, it's seen a very slow adoption rate because of how difficult it is both to implement and then once implemented, the challenges it poses from a workflow perspective. As Shareable Ink was formed, we were formed around the premise that there has to be a better way. There's got to be a way to provide the same level of data and the same level of reporting to our clients without necessarily interrupting the workflow in the same manner that traditional EMRs do. As I move into our product offerings, I'll tell you a little bit about why we take a different approach. Instead of using fingers on keyboard and building a web interface or a client-server application to solve our EMR problem, we've instead decided to take the approach of what we call intuitive input tools. Using digital pen technology, we're able to have our doctors and nurses write directly on paper and have that data go into the electronic record system. A digital pen is a pen that's exactly like a normal ink pen, except it has a small camera in it that takes pictures at approximately 75 frames per second. This camera allows us to determine exactly when someone's writing on a piece of paper so that we know exactly which fields they're writing on as they're completing a form. The form is printed out of a standard laser printer. The only difference is behind the form itself there's a very small pattern of dots across the whole form, and each dot is individually set off from an XY grid, which allows the camera to determine, as it's taking pictures, exactly where it's writing on a piece of paper. Each piece of paper and the pattern on the form behind it, the pattern of the dots is unique. So as we're writing on different pieces of paper, the system can tell what form that is and which patient it belongs to. Now, by combining all this technology, the digital pen and the form together, we're able to provide an experience where forms can be printed out, the providers can write on the forms, and we can discreetly capture that data and put it into our databases. As you can see on the slide here, there are a couple examples of applications that we have. We focused deeply in anesthesia and a product called Digital Share, which addresses the emergency department side of the healthcare industry over the last couple years. We've also developed interfaces to transfer information from the pen directly into ambulatory systems, including systems like Allscripts. We also have a project or a product specifically around capturing patient documentation. So at the intake perspective, a patient can complete a demographics form and capture that data using our digital pen. And we also have other applications such as nursing notes and physician progress notes. By using these input tools, pen and paper and an iPad, we can actually provide integration directly into EHRs or hospital information systems, provide access to alerting functionality, do archiving or analytics, and also go into the billing side of the world as well, providing billing services and billing maximization coding. This gives you a little background on what Shareable Ink is and how we affect healthcare. The is that based on our unique approach to the healthcare EHR problem, we've had a significant response from our customer base. You can see here a listing of the customers that we have and the partnerships we've developed in just a little over 2 years of operation. Because of the fact that there are specific workflows that are especially well set up for the use of pen and paper technology, we've had a strong showing from our initial core markets, which were anesthesia and the emergency department. And now as we grow and accelerate, we're looking to take our core platform and expand it both across other industries and dive a little bit deeper into anesthesia and emergency room technology so we can make sure we're addressing those needs specifically. Now with these increase both in customer size and scale, we've had a number of new customer requests come up for our functionality. Initially we were only built around capturing form information, turning it into digital data, and then creating a digital version of the form itself. One of the first requests that came up, as you might imagine, was analytics, of course. And what was interesting was the amount of demand really centered around the fact that some of these data elements that we had captured through pen and paper had never been discrete data elements before. So our audiences in anesthesia, emergency rooms, and other areas of healthcare were pretty quick to notice that there's a lot of power in the data, and we could get some pretty advanced reporting that they'd never had the chance to see before. Their demand really centered around 3 areas. The first was operational. Really, the hospital administrators and the general management of the anesthesia groups really wanted to see where were there areas that they could improve, what metrics, what measurements could they gather from the reporting and identify as forms of improvement so they could better their services and improve their final reporting. A second area was around compliance. we're all aware in healthcare there's accrediting bodies and there are audit procedures. And compliance was a definite challenge for pen and paper-based institutions. In the paper chart world, the way to prepare for an upcoming audit or run an internal audit is to conduct a chart review, which is generally done by pulling 10 or 15 or maybe 20% of the charts that you have on paper and doing a review to see if these charts comply with all the required elements, including signature requirements and completion of the form. Because Shareable Ink was using that same pen and paper workflow with a digital pen, we're now able to conduct that same compliance audit level, except it's on 100% of the charts. So as you can imagine, right away, our clients were very interested in seeing the outcomes of a 100% chart audit review to see if they were fully compliant with their rules and regulations from an accreditation standpoint. Finally, there was a lot of demand around getting the metrics and reporting from a financial standpoint as well. There are examples of where reporting can help support the reimbursement model as well. For anesthesia specifically, there's an example of this using what's called the SCIP measures, SCIP, the Surgical Care Improvement Project. The Surgical Care Improvement Project can require certain documentation to be completed and turned in and certain levels of compliance for key metrics on the anesthesia side. Failure to comply can result in a 2% penalty from a reimbursement perspective. So by using these 100% chart audit techniques and reporting within Shareable Ink, it becomes very easy for anesthesia groups to show their hospitals that they comply with the SCIP measures in full, and also for hospitals to show as well that they're entitled to the full reimbursement without penalty. Now, in addition to this customer demand, Shareable Ink also wanted to provide some additional functionality through analytics. We wanted to provide quick access to the clinical documentation itself. One of the benefits of reporting is, of course, seeing a high-level view of the business itself, but we want to be able to provide the ability to drill down quickly and access the clinical information. We also wanted to deliver what we called platform standard reports, reports that were valuable across industry, so we could deploy a report that would be valuable both to anesthesia and to emergency room medicine and to our other customers, but at the same time deploy it once so that we didn't have to build the same report several times. Finally, from a Shareable Ink standpoint, we were looking to use analytics to, of course, increase our market base and our sales revenue. By showing the value and the power of unlocking the data that's been long captured on pen and paper, we wanted to incite additional interest and generate additional sales. So moving on from why analytics, I want to talk specifically about the analytics needs that our customers had as a group. As I mentioned, standard platform reports were one big request, both from our customers and from ourselves internally. An example of a standard platform report, I'm going to use a report that we call our case counting reports, where we can count the number of cases that have been provided by day, by a particular provider, or by a particular operating room. These case count reports just basically look at the number of services that were provided and divide them up by those different categories. They're relevant not just to a particular practice such as anesthesia, but they can be relevant across our product offering. We don't want to be able to build those types of reports that were easy and relevant once and be able to deploy them across the board, similar to how we enhance functionality on our overall Shareable Ink platform. We also discussed compliance from a customer demand perspective. That's another example of a standard report. Through Shareable Ink, once customers have captured information on using the pen or the iPad, they're able to see alerts that let them know if their forms are incomplete, or if they captured incorrect information, or if a signature is missing. We can also provide reporting across our different products on the documentation compliance and these alert indications compliance. In addition to those standard platform reports, we wanted to be able to provide what we called product-specific reports. For anesthesia, there are certain metrics that are valuable just for anesthesia, just as there are for the emergency department side, et cetera. So we wanted, from a business need perspective, to be able to deliver the types of reports that were valuable to each specific industry. In anesthesia, I've got a couple examples of our reporting suite here, things like cost per case, where we actually can measure and show information on how much each case costs. This can be really valuable for the anesthesia group or for the anesthesia provider because they can see the difference among their providers in terms of what medications or narcotics are being used and what that actual case is costing. Timeout compliance is another example on the anesthesia side. Before a surgical procedure takes place, the entire OR is supposed to pause in what's called a timeout so they can evaluate if all the correct preparation has been done and if the surgical operation that's about to take place is in the right area and we've got the right patient. This is actually to be documented in the anesthesia record along with the time. Using our reporting, we can effectively do 100% chart review and return information on if all the timeout compliance was accurately handled, and if not, which specific providers on which dates for which procedures actually did not comply with the timeout procedure. Another example of a product-specific report is in the emergency department side, where you measure patient throughput to see how many patients are flowing through the ER. Now, the third need on the analytics side was also for just ad hoc capabilities as well. We knew that we weren't going to be able to provide all the reports our clients needed at Shareable Ink. We wanted to eventually start exposing the data to them so that they could be able to build the reports that they needed to. So we were looking for something that was fairly standard with drag and drop capability so that even both our internal and external users could start to build reports on their own without necessarily requiring engineering or development help. So in evaluating those needs, we started off our solution with just a manual reporting function at first. Using Excels and PowerPoints, we download the data. We used Excel skills such as pivot tables to build advanced reports. And we sent that information off in an aggregated format, including visual charts and graphs, et cetera, to our clients using PowerPoint. Even to this day, when we're first starting out a report, in order to validate it, we may use the manual reporting method to still get reports out that are still under development from an analytics standpoint. The challenges with manual reporting are fairly obvious. As you all may know, it requires resource time for someone to go in and calculate and summarize all the formulas, and obviously to design charts and use pivot tables. That resource is generally someone with a fair amount of expertise in Excel. And of course, this has to be reproduced monthly, so it's a recurring effort for the same metrics. It's also not especially easy to create the drill down type functionality to get to the root of the problem once you identify that there is an issue. So as most enterprise software companies, we quickly began the search for a true enterprise reporting platform. We did do a brief evaluation of whether we wanted to build versus buy and realized that for us, it made sense to utilize one of the true platforms so that we could focus our energy and time on what we knew best, which is helping the clinical provider with the tools that we have. In selecting a platform, we ended up at Pentaho for a number of reasons. The first being we wanted something that was an established, proven enterprise platform. Since we have this very different data, we're capturing data directly off forms, we wanted someone familiar with aggregating large amounts of data and building reports and dashboards. We also wanted a low learning curve with easy access to documentation. Pentaho provides that in that it's a simple, easy to use tool. They also have access to training, and there's an open source community that has plenty of insight into how to do the more expert tasks within Pentaho. We were also looking for NoSQL and big data experience. Because of the fact that we are capturing data from hundreds of different forms, we actually store this data in the database as unstructured data. We use a NoSQL database so that we can store the data as key value pairs. And instead of having to build a normalized schema to store our information, we instead just store it as a unstructured data and then restructure it for analytics purposes. We wanted a solutions provider who had experience with that and had created integrated connectors already for NoSQL databases and spoke the language. Next, obviously, a robust functionality set and aggressive roadmap was important to us as a small startup that's building a lot of functionality. We wanted to make sure that the reporting end was taken care of. We wanted our reporting provider to be one step ahead of us, so as we got new needs and requirements from our customers from a reporting perspective, we could count on our vendor to already be building those into their application. And we found that with Pentaho. Of course, with the startup environment, a value play is definitely important. We wanted functionality that stood up against the best of the best from a reporting perspective, and a cost that could be scaled up with our business. With Pentaho, we found a true partner in terms of value. We had a good balance between both the cost side of things and the feature set. And then finally, we were looking for a partner that fit our model. We're cloud-based. We're built to scale, and we're looking to scale. We've had a rapid amount of growth, and we expect that to continue in the future. So we're looking for a partner that could meet those needs. In Pentaho's open architecture, we found the ability to find a platform that was similar to ours in terms of those needs, and also one that we could modify as needed. With the open data architecture, we can easily integrate the Pentaho product or embed into our look and feel, and we can customize further as we have to more tightly integrate it with our particular databases and processes. Using that open data architecture, we've been able to customize the product specifically for Shareable Ink's needs. So given that solution, I want to talk a little bit about our technical side of the house and tell you a little bit about what we did with Pentaho once we identified it as a good partner for our solution. Shareable Ink, as we talked about, is cloud-based. We're a software as a service application with a standard 3-tier architecture. We've got a web server and a web server tier, a set of application servers. We are Java and Ruby based, and our NoSQL database architecture on the database end. We use Pentaho to extract the unstructured data and restructure it into a SQL-based database, and this is all on the Linux platform. Now, some examples of the Pentaho components we use the business analytics product, including the data integration, the PDI tool for the extraction and the load into our SQL database. We can also apply logic from the extraction into the load. So even if our many hospitals are capturing information in different formats, we can still apply logic to transfer that into the data elements, the standardized data elements that we want to apply on the data warehouse side. This allows us to have a standard data warehouse structure on a per client basis, even though they may have several different versions of the forms, such as the anesthesia record out there. We can use a mapping layer so that even though a certain field or a certain concept, such as normothermia, may be captured one way by a particular client, and another client may capture it in a completely different format, we can use the PDI tool to extract that data, use our mapping layer to identify what particular field it should be mapped into on our standard data warehouse side, and enter it into the field accordingly. Also, we use the Report Designer tool to build the reports that we deploy out. The Report Designer tool, we use the band of development functionality along with the sub-report functionality to create the reports. We can use hyperlinks within the reports to create drill-down functionality as well. The reason why this is valuable is because once we identify an issue from a compliance perspective or an issue with a particular case, using the drill down technology, we're easily able to go directly not just to the case information, but to the actual document that the provider completed with pen and paper, and bring that document up for the supervisor or for the person using analytics to review. This lets them see the actual documentation and review and confirm where the issue arose. Finally, in addition to the report designer, we also use the analysis side of the product. This helps with the monitoring cube functionality. We've already started building cubes on the analytics side so that we can allow our users the ability to start dragging and dropping elements and building their own reports. We've currently got this in beta right now, and we're starting right now to expand the number of attributes we have in the data model so that we can present our users with more of a choice in terms of building their reports. I look forward to having the capability out there where our users can actually build and share reports and then help better inform us too on what their exact needs and requirements are so that we can create a community of users around the reporting standpoint and give them the tools that they need to accomplish their analytics goals so that we're not the bottleneck in terms of providing reporting and analytics knowledge. I also wanted to give you a brief look at the analytics itself as it resides within Shareable Ink. Here's an example of a report that we use called On-Time Cases. You can see this is within our web portal. Once the user has used their digital pen and synced the pen by docking it in a cradle, the information is transferred to our servers where we can then provide them with workflow cues around and alerting around their documentation. This portal is also where they access the analytics functionality, and they can see reports around the documentation they've completed as well. You can see in this case they're within the portal, and you see the Shareable Ink logo on the left. And we've actually integrated in the analytics functionality from Pentaho, and what we're displaying there is a Pentaho dashboard using the community dashboard framework, an open source tool that's available for use with Pentaho. See the dashboard showing us a chart around on-time cases, and we can see both cases that were on time and not on time, although you can't actually interact with the dashboard here. What you'd be able to do is, in the real live portal, is you'd be able to click on the red section and drill down into a particular state and see what cases were on time and not on time, and continue to click down until you had exactly the list of cases that were not on time. And then you could further see information by provider and drill down to get the actual documentation, the actual paper scan of the document that was completed for that case, so you could see further into why it may or may not have been on time. This sort of ability to embed the analytics within the tool gives us an advantage in terms of making sure we're still maintaining the same user interface for the client and creating a seamless user experience. Finally, I'm going to close off with just some of the benefits we've seen from an analytics standpoint and some of what we've gained by choosing an enterprise partner such as Pentaho for our big data efforts. First, from the Shareable Ink standpoint, as we mentioned before, one of our goals was to attract customers and expand into new markets. And we've definitely seen a lot of interest from our customers and our prospects in terms of turning the data that we digitize into reports. It's one of the much discussed topics from both a sales perspective and from a customer's perspective. We've definitely seen a lot of increase in our product interest around analytics, and it can help us open the doors to new markets, specifically by saying we've got the ability to take data you've never seen before, digitize it, and then start providing reports to you specifically around questions you'd like to see answered. Also, from our perspective, it was instrumental in saving us money from an R&D side. We did consider building this product, but from a reporting standpoint, it makes sense to partner with a best-of-breed provider such as Pentaho for us. With a small development team and a large amount of functionality on my product management slate, I wanted to stay focused on functionality that we knew the most about. So we wanted to stay focused on the clinical side of things. From our client's perspective, there are numerous benefits as well. The first is, of course, as we discussed, the access to 100% chart audit. This is going to be instrumental in terms of preparing them for a true external audit as well. The second is a reduction in effort on the manual reporting side. Many of the reporting efforts that they had been taking place on pen and paper required, similar to our initial analytics efforts, a manual effort in terms of a person actually counting through on paper, aggregating those data, using Excel and spreadsheets to create manual versions of our same reports. With our digitized approach combined with our Pentaho-based solution, we're able to provide a similar, actually a much higher degree of quality with much less effort. Finally, the ability to make data-driven decisions is, of course, important for all clients, but specifically in healthcare, when the data hasn't necessarily been accessible before, they can in turn determine where to spend their time and resources in terms of improving their operations. And although it's not noted on there specifically on my slide, I think the best benefit of analytics is from a healthcare perspective, we're aiming to drive towards a better quality of care. One example we commonly use on the anesthesia side is we discuss a concept that we've known as normothermia, which throughout the course of the anesthesia provider, we're basically trying to maintain a certain amount of healthy body temperature. Using our reporting, our anesthesia groups and hospitals can check to see if that proper normothermia levels were maintained, and if not, if a warming measure was applied, such as a blanket, to make sure that the person's body temperature was increased to the appropriate rate. Now, while this is not necessarily valuable from a compliance standpoint or financial standpoint, even though it is one of the skip measures, what's most important is the patient is actually starting to feel better, and they actually come out of the process much easier when they're maintained at the proper body temperature. Our hope is to continue using analytics to benefit our clients from an operational and financial perspective, and then hopefully to help aid the larger goal of increasing the quality of care. I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to join us for this webinar today. I hope you've learned a little bit both about Shareable Ink and Pentaho. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. A special thanks to our guest speaker, Jerry Andrade, for that very insightful presentation. I just wanted to remind everyone to visit the Pentaho webpage if you'd like to read more about the Pentaho OEM partnership and how Shareable Ink got an enterprise-level solution for the cost of an open-source solution. Here you can read the full press release and the full case study as well. So that's pentaho.com/customers/68/Shareable Ink, as you can see here on the slide. So thanks again. That concludes the webinar for today, and goodbye to everyone.